As promised, we are now joined by Ernie Tedeschi. He is the Director of Economics at the Budget Lab at Yale University, also a former chief economist for the Council of Economic Advisors. Ernie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Ernie, when we kind of try to price out the cost of tariffs to the average American family, I know you and your group have done a bunch of work on this year. As it stands with current tariff rates, what are we looking at as far as the potential additional cost to families on an annual basis?
Yeah, so if you look at all the tariffs that have been announced in 2025 to date, beginning with the initial announcement in February on Canada, Mexico, and China, and then everything that's been done since then, um, the total would, on average, come to $2,400 per family per year. Now, a couple things. It will take, about 2 or 3 years for tariffs to fully phase in and pinch families by that full amount. Right now, families and businesses are timing a lot of their purchases, so we're not seeing the full effect of tariffs yet. But eventually, we think it'll get to that full $2,400. The other thing is that when you open up the hood and you look beneath that number, it's not going to be the same for every family, which I think makes sense to most people. Actually, for lower income people, they are going to get hit harder as a share of their income than higher income people will. And that's because lower income families spend a greater share of their income in general, and they spend a larger share of their budget on imports in particular. So whereas a top income family might get hit by roughly 1% of their income as a result of 2025 tariffs to date, a lower income family is going to get hit 3 times that. So there's really a lot of, difference among American families.
Is there any sense, I know that you mentioned it might take 2 to 3 years for the full phase-in to take effect here. Any sense as to kind of how far along we are in that process, just from a dollar perspective or percentage perspective, right now? I know that, in the recent CPI data, we've started to see a few categories that are showing some price increases there. But are we really seeing it showing up on store shelves yet or not yet?
Yeah, so if it's showing up in CPI, then that's a sign that it's showing up in store shelves somewhere on average, right? And so, look, CPI is a national average, so that's not necessarily the lived experience of everyone at any given time. But you're absolutely right. In particular, when you look at durable goods, so things like household appliances, electronics, furniture, those prices, believe it or not, as measured by CPI, usually fall a little bit year to year. That behavior has completely gone the opposite direction so far this year, and those prices are up so far. So it's good circumstantial evidence that something new is weighing on durable goods prices this year, and it's almost certainly tariffs. Based on what we've seen, we think that consumers, as of June or July, are paying roughly, half to 3/4 of the tariffs so far. We think that eventually that'll stabilize at around 80% of the tariffs. That is, that American businesses will eat maybe a quarter to a fifth of the tariffs, and American consumers will shoulder the rest. They'll pay 75 to 80% of them, with foreign producers paying virtually none of them. So that process has probably, so to go back to your original question, we're actually fairly far along in that process now, but we have a little bit further to go before families are paying what we expect to be the full amount that they're paying.
Ernie, do you think there are convincing cases for the tariff-related price increases generating either a one-time increase in inflation or becoming a perpetual problem? Is there a reasonable case that both of those could be considered?
I think both of them are reasonable. And look, what I tell people all the time is the last time that we had tariff increases of this magnitude was the Smoot-Hawley tariff in 1930.
None of us were alive.
Yeah, exactly. None of us were alive, and our economic data back then was not nearly as good as it is now. So a lot of this is terra incognita for us. We are all, we all just need to sort of have wide uncertainty bands and pay attention to the data and be humble about what we think we know or what we don't know. All of that. So the case that tariffs are a one-time price increase is what you're going to find in virtually any economics textbook, right? A tariff is a tax. You put that tax on, and as long as you don't change it, that should manifest itself as a one-time price increase. And that's the rationale, for example, in the Federal Reserve among officials who think that they should ignore the price effects on tariff, right? Because their mandate is inflation, the growth or the change in prices. And their argument is, all right, once we get through this, there's not going to be any more change on the other side. But there is convincing research elsewhere that it's not just the one-time price level shift from tariffs. Tariffs weigh on supply chains, things that will persistently affect not just the level of prices, but inflation over time. And I think that is what Chair Powell and some other Fed officials are worried about. They haven't decided whether that's happening yet or not, but they're keeping a keen eye out for whether they see evidence of that happening.